Another prop that I have for this character is a shoulder armor, something that you'll see often with ogres and stuff like that. So let's see how we can go about connecting this prop so that it behaves as part of this character. You can support CGDive by purchasing this course or some of the exclusive courses on academy.cgdive.com. This kind of prop will not bend in any way. So one of the easiest way to connect it to the character is to directly parent it to one of the bones. In the end of this video, I'll also show you how you can do the same thing with weight painting. Not exactly with weight painting, but by setting weights in a way that will make sure that this prop never bends, that it's just rigidly attached. This may be necessary, for example, if you want to export your character to a game engine. If the prop is just parented to a bone, that will work in Blender, but it will not work when you export the character. Okay, I'll select my generated rig, and this prop, this shoulder armor, is attached to the upper arm. So one thing I could try is to unhide the ORG bones, layer 31 over here, select my prop, then shift select the armature, go to pose mode, select this upper arm, and press Ctrl P and choose bone. And then I can go through my, oh, this is the leg action. I want the, let's switch to the arm section and scrub through and see what happens. And right away I see some problems. When the arm rotates, when the upper arm rotates, this prop really rotates with it, which is way too much. We generally want this prop to stay more or less attached on top of the shoulder. Another problem that I see right away is that these spikes will pierce the head of the character as soon as he raises his arm, which is not good. Okay, so this kind of parenting will not work. Let's try something else. Let's unhide the deformation layers. And if you remember, we split this upper arm into 3 sections. One of the things that this does is that when this arm is rotated on its own axis, this first bone in the chain stays very rigid. It almost doesn't rotate. So let's try parenting this prop to this bone. So make sure you have the prop selected, shift select the armature, pose mode, select the bone, Ctrl P and choose bone. And that will move the bone a little bit. The solution is to select your prop in object mode, press Alt P and choose clear and keep transform. And then I'm going to parent again to this bone. And now I won't see any moving in this prop. And now I can scrub through the animation and see what happens. Now when the arm rotates on its own axis in here, the prop doesn't rotate at all, which is better than what we had before, but still looks a little bit weird. And we still have this problem that the shoulder armor, one, it kind of goes into the neck of the character, and two, the spikes pierce the head of the character. Let's make another experiment. Let's parent the shoulder armor to the middle bone instead, to this one. So again, in object mode, Alt P, clear the parent, and then parent to this middle bone. And maybe this will give us a good compromise between the first and the second experiment that we did. Okay, when the arm rotates on its own axis, I see a little bit of natural rotation in the shoulder armor, but not too much. I like it. But we still have the problem here where the shoulder armor is really clipping into the character. Other than that, I find this solution the best from the 3 that we tested until now. So let's try to build upon it. Let's go to our metarig. hide the generated one. So here is my plan for now. I'm going to create a new bone, a new raw copy bone in here that, using the relink constraint that I showed you earlier, will be parented to this to the middle bone in the generated rig, to this middle bone of the upper arm. And this raw copy bone will also have a constraint which will say whenever the ogre raises his arm, I want this the shoulder armor to slide a little bit towards the elbow. With that constraint, I'll try to avoid this overlapping of the armor and head that we get when the arm is raised. Okay, so to start, I'm going to select the upper arm of the metarig, Shift D, switch to individual origins and make it smaller. Go to pose mode, change the rig type to raw copy, use relink constraints, and then I'll go to the generated rig, select the middle bone, F2, which gives me the rename menu, but I'm not going to rename it. I'll just select the whole name and Control C and copy it. Then I'll go back to the metarig and paste the name that I copied into the parent field. Okay, and next let's set up the constraint. I'm going to select the upper arm, then shift select this new raw copy bone that we created. Actually, I want to rename this bone, and I'll name it shoulder armor for now. Now let's select the upper arm and the shoulder armor bone and Control Shift C and choose transformation, our favorite and very useful transformation constraint. And now what I want is the rotation of the upper arm to drive the location of the shoulder bone. I want that to happen in local space. And I can see that raising the arm happens on the Z-axis. And this movement that I want to happen for the shoulder armor bone is in this direction, which is always the Y direction. Because in Blender, a bone is always pointing in the Y axis. All right, I have to say that Z will drive Y. And now let's see, I'll try to rotate this arm a little bit and take note of the rotation value in the upper left corner. So we are at about 40 degrees right now, which is, you know, somewhere around here, around 45 degrees maybe. I want this offset of the armor to start happening. And here we're at 110 degrees. And by then I want the armor offset to have happened fully. So for these Z values, I need to input something like 45 to 110. Now let's select this bone and try moving it on the Y-axis a little bit. And the offset I want is not going to be a lot, maybe around that much, which is about 1.5 if you again pay attention to the upper left corner. So I'll leave Y minimum to 0 and Y max to 0.15. And then I can later tweak these values as I see fit. Okay, that will do for now. Let's run a quick test. Unhide the generated rig and generate. Set the arm action. Now I want to clear the parenting for the shoulder armor. Select my generated rig, go to pose mode, and here is this new bone that I just created. Shoulder armor. And I'll press Ctrl P and choose bone. And then I can scrub through and see what happens. So far I get exactly the same behavior as before because this shoulder bone is now parented to the middle deformation bone of the upper arm. Here this bone suddenly jumps for a split second. So this is something that I'll need to address. And here you'll see the transformation constraint that we set in action. Notice how the shoulder armor slides upwards when the ogre raises his arm. If we enable overlays, that will be even easier to see. Notice how this red bone that I have selected moves upwards. And that's nice. This way we avoided the shoulder armor being stuck in here in the shoulder or in the neck area. But it still does penetrate the skull, which is not really nice. Let's keep going through this animation and see if we notice any other problems. Here's a problem that I see. Even though the arm is raised here, this shoulder bone does not move up. And that is because moving the arm up can happen on more than one axis, not just on the z-axis. The z-axis is the most straightforward one, but there are other combinations of x, y, and z which will also cause the arm to raise. So let's try to fix this. The fact that this ogre will commit suicide every time he raises his arm. I have this new bone that I created selected, the shoulder armor bone. I'm going to go to the constraints menu and add another transformation constraint. And let's copy these values that we have already. I'll hover over the target field, press Ctrl+C, and paste it in the target for the new constraint. And also Ctrl+C over the bone value and paste it in the other constraint. And with this second transformation constraint, I want the same type of rotation of the upper arm to drive the rotation of the shoulder armor. So I'll set rotation to rotation. Space will be local space to local space, as almost always. And then I want the exact same values for Z, so 45 to 110. And again, I definitely want this Z rotation to drive the Y location of the shoulder armor. So Z to Y. And here, as I have the arm raised, I'll try to play with this maximum value until this spike avoids the skull of the character. So let's see what happened. Boom, nice. We have no interaction between the skull and the spikes. Let's see if we can fix this weird jumping of the shoulder armor somehow. I think I've mentioned it before, but when you get this kind of behavior, often switching the transformation constraint mode to quaternion helps a lot. And here it did indeed help. Another thing that I might want to play with is, yeah, I think I want the raising of the armor to begin a little bit later than my original setup. So I'm going to increase this min value to something like 50, maybe even 55. See how it seems like the armor is being actually pushed by the geometry. I like that. And I should also set the same value for the second transformation constraint. Maybe 50 will be nicer after all. Now 55. That's it for this chapter. Please like, subscribe, and check out our other projects. academy.cgdive.com and addons.cgdive.com.